Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to part 3 of SmithersCast 5 tips for competitive Hell Let Loose teams. Because this is more involving into overall Hell Let Loose teams, right, versus just newer teams. So, see a lot of great comments and everything, and we'll keep these going, right? All right, so number 1, starting off today, let's talk about proxy satchels. Now, what is a proxy satchel? Well, a proxy satchel is when you put down a satchel in a certain spot, not on a specific target, but just on a wall or the ground, or maybe in a house or something like that, right? And you just want to put it down there and just to explode it for the proximity and see if you get any infantry, maybe a garrison or something like that, right? We're going to walk through an example here of a couple really good proxy satchels that went off during the 22nd versus Merc game that I casted this past weekend, and they were fantastic examples. Okay, this game was intense. This game was one of the best games I've ever casted, just from how close it was the entire time. Okay, let's go ahead and walk through this real quick. All right, Stewie's loading up behind the hay bale. Allied Medium just made its way. Once again, it goes back to the point we talked about earlier when it comes to understanding the map and the situation you're in, right? Here we have Foy Dugout Barn, so the midpoint of Dugout Barn, right? Okay, if we take out our pen now, I'm going to go ahead and we'll circle the barn right here. And if we take a look at the barn, it's the main position on the strong point, right? That's the main area of coverage that infantry is going to have, that where they're going to put supplies, they're going to put Garys, they're going to put maybe a half track, they're going to maybe stash a tank. All those sorts of things could go off in that barn, right? Or they could be placed inside the barn. And when you study the map, you got to think, okay, well, there's one main structure on the point. Everything else is pretty much open. So what can we do with that main structure on point? Well, you could put a proxy satchel down on it, right? And you can get everything inside the barn. And so if the enemy's putting garrisons inside the barn or whatever, it can destroy them, right? But also, once again, a big part of this game is thinking outside the box, right? Not only can proxy satchels be used for the offensive, in the offensive stance, but also in the defensive stance, right? You could put, and when you're on the attacking, you put satchels on the barn, and put them on the barn, blow it all up and everything. But what if you're on the defensive? What can you do? Well, if the enemy is pushing towards you, and they're getting closer, and you know there's a chance you can lose that barn, you can put down a satchel in preparation for that. You often see this in offensive mode or in pub matches, as far as people putting satchels down inside the point when it's about to tick over, right? So they'll put down a satchel, 2-minute satchel or something like that, and they'll blow up as soon as the enemy captures the point. It'll kill them all, and then they'll go on to the next point. So you have to think about a defensive satchel and the different ways you can use it. Let's go ahead and dive into the example here in the game. All around. And the Tiger wasn't able to get intel in time to take it out either, but the Tiger up here did get popped, it looks like. Okay, Merc is on the Allies. They're pushing towards the point, getting a lot of pressure on the point. Okay, we have, in this situation, we see the tanks, the infantry, all pushing up towards the barn. Okay, remember, the barn is the main structure on point. Did recently use their bombing run, so I don't think it's off cooldown for another few minutes. Another gets right on the point. All right, so get good, bro. Takes a rocket and wipes it. Back right now. They may want to think about backing up just for the moment and wait for the other tanks to maybe this little approach right there up to look like they're gonna shove it all in right now. Okay, Merc is now streaming towards the point. We see the wave of raspberries on our screen. Still back there in support. We do see a little Tiger back here. This Tiger is the pressure's starting to mount. Looking to get an angle for the approach. And airhead has been called in by Merc as well. They are going for the all-in here with 15 minutes left. Okay, when you see the enemy drop an airhead, you know they're getting real serious about the attack in most situations. 10-minute cooldown for the airhead, so they will have another one up around the 4-minute mark if this doesn't work out. We should see a counter-bombing run by Bones here in just a few minutes, I think. Camp progress callback. As we see here, the raspberries are getting really close to the, they're pretty much on the border of the barn. And the infantry is pushing in, their airhead is dropped on point. All of this is looking in favor of Merc right now. Merc's starting to get inside the barn right now. We should see a proxy satchel go off. And if we look on our screen real quick, everybody, let's go and take a look here. We see Get Good Bro assault kit. And what does assault kit mean? Well, most likely has a satchel. And Get Good Bro is aware of the situation. I think after the game, 22nd told me they had a code word, or they sent out a message during this match and said, hey, you have to go take care of this responsibility of putting a proxy satchel down if we start to get a lot of pressure inside the point. Let's launch Get Good Bro.
Hands are full right here. We do have a proxy satchel going off in the corner to make that door right there. All right.
All right. Get Good Bro puts a satchel where, everybody? He puts a satchel right here in the corner of the barn, in the utmost corner, because that's where what's happening over there, right? Merc is pushing in like this towards the barn. And not only is it in this direction, you have to understand the terrain. Remember, this is where the thickest forest essentially is in this part. Plus you have the building right here, and you just have to be aware that, hey, this isn't the most likely place that Merc is going to push up towards the point. This was a fantastic proxy satchel placed in the corner because it's away from the friendly infantry for the most part, but it's most likely now going to get some enemies. Okay, as we just mentioned, like a time of danger, if you will. And now we see the few bodies that were here get wiped, and now Merc is making a beeline for the cattle shed right here.
Put down by Get Good Bro. Panzer IV is going to look to maybe move a little bit out of the...
Satchel's about to go off now in the corner of the barn. We see the commander there. We see a squad lead, and there's going to be some more infantry pushing up as well.
Let's go take a look. Okay, gets a nice...
Okay, got a few bodies, but it could have gotten an outpost. It could have gotten 2 outposts. I don't know. But the squad lead was right there, and it could have gotten more. Plus, it got the commander. And the commander being off the screen is huge sometimes because it's delaying calling and abilities. It's delaying some communication, possibly, depending on how they set up their communication. But it's preventing him from seeing the map and instructing someone to do something else. Big win right there for the first one, okay? But sometimes one satchel is not enough. One satchel is not enough sometimes.
Awake's gonna probably look to put down...
Here we have the second assault player, and Awake is going to do the same thing. Awake is going to push up here, go into the corner of the cattle shed building, and put a satchel right there in the corner.
Awake goes into the corner of the barn.
So Awake is right here, everybody. Awake is right here.
Gets a proxy satchel down.
I think he maybe had a... I think he heard an enemy or something like that around the corner. But Awake puts down another satchel right there in the corner. And I think also we have Donuts that put down a satchel right here as well. So I think Donuts may have went down. Also flamethrower action. I think Donuts and Awake both combined for satchels right there. Get Good Bro is right here over as well.
This is the advantage of getting the control over southern edge and pushing west. These guys are going to be able to lay...
Get Good Bro is right here with the assault kit, okay? I'm not sure how many satchels went down here, but I know a few went down.
These Merc guys trying to get into the building complex right...
So Get Good Bro possibly goes up here and puts down a satchel, and we saw Donuts possibly put down one more, a second satchel, and then Awake with a third satchel on the corner of the barn. And there we have it. Look at that wipe. Let's go back and take a quick rewind right here. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bodies in the immediate area. And now we only see 4. So 5 kills with the proxy satchels that were around that area. And that's huge. That's huge in this critical moment where every single kill counts. And so just tell your guys to, when they're in a pickle, when they're in a bind, when they're in a spicy situation, to put down those proxy satchels, and it can make a huge difference in the long run. You may get a squad lead, you may get an OP, you may get, who knows what you might get. You never know, a tank may push up. I've seen this before in stream 2. A guy puts down a proxy satchel right next to a building, a tank rolls up like 15 seconds later, had no idea the tank was going to be there, the tank blows up too. Crazy plays you can give with proxy satchels. But that's number 1 tip for right now, or for this one, okay? Put down proxy satchels. A few great examples right there on the defensive mode to put those down, okay? Let's move on to tip number 2. All right, next, number 2 tip, everybody, is you need to instill the next man or woman up philosophy. And what I mean by that is, if the team is having if they set out their roster by Wednesday, let's say it's something like that, right? They get signups, it rosters up, and it's filled by Wednesday or Thursday. And the people who didn't get roster look at the roster and go, damn it, I didn't get roster, and they cry or whatever, they complain. You have to trust the people that are making the rostering decisions as to why they did certain things. You complaining how you didn't get rostered doesn't help anybody. Now, what you can do is you can ask the rostering, whoever's in charge of it, to say, hey, what can I do better to get rostered next time? Or is there anything I could change? Or can I play in the scrims or something like that? You can always ask those sorts of questions as to help improve your chances. But your team needs to instill that next man or woman up philosophy. Because when it comes time for game day, I have never, ever seen a game where we posted signups on Wednesday or Thursday and everybody was good, and then by Sunday when the game time goes around, we have the exact same roster. It hasn't happened to me ever. People get sick. People lose power. People lose internet connections. All sorts of problems come up. You have to make sure that you have backups to fill those spots in case. And for those of you who don't get rostered, you need to say, oh, hey, there's an opportunity for me to play. I'll take it. Versus, no, you didn't roster me, so I'm not playing. Or no. Now, granted, if you don't get rostered, then you start making personal plans. That's another conversation. But if you're available to play and you don't play because you didn't get rostered originally, that's nonsense. It's a team effort. You need to be there for your team when they need you. And I don't care what role it is. You shouldn't complain if you're having to be a tank simp on the back of a tank, repairing the tank the whole time, playing arty, or just fill the role that the team needs, because it's a team game. In 49s, 49s, 35, whatever it may be, just try to fill that role and be a team player. But also remember, as a team, you need to understand that every weekend you're not going to have your best roster or best roster. You're not going to have it. I mean, there's been times in Helios where we've had an amazing game one weekend against some top tier teams and we beat them. We're like, hell yeah. But then the next weekend, a whole bunch of people can't sign up and we have to do a whole bunch of reserves and people may not have played in a while and we get our ass kicked. It's happened to us all the time. You just have to remember that the team isn't always going to have the same shape every single weekend. And it's going to fluctuate a whole bunch. It's going to fluctuate so much. The importance there is, though, to have cross-training. We get people experienced in tanks that don't necessarily play tanks too often, and always put out polls that say, hey, what are you guys all interested? Are you interested in playing positions that you don't normally play? Okay? That way, you have a lot more flexibility around the team as far as who can play where. The position you really want to maybe think about, too, is also commander and getting plenty of people practice with the commander role. That way, if a commander is out, your team wasn't dependent on that one person to play commander, because that seems to be the most popular role for some reason. Don't understand why. But just make sure you have backups, at least one backup commander, possibly two backup commanders, just in case, okay? But you want to maintain that flexibility around the roster, have the next man or woman of philosophy, and to have all that nice and be about the team effort. So that is tip number 2 for a new team starting out. Let's move on to tip number 3. Let's talk about light and recon tanks or medium tanks on defense. A lot of teams struggle by always thinking, oh, tanks need to attack. We need to throw our tanks on the attack. You don't always need to do that, guys. You don't always need to do that. You can allocate tanks on the defense, like we see here. So this was a match between R22R and L201. Here, Legion, they were the allies on the SMDM, as you see here. But they were struggling on defense a little bit. And you have to understand that on defense, usually teams play a min-max philosophy. They'll have a few bodies on defense, and then they will max out on offense. The problem with that is that your guys on defense have to have they have the ability to trade equally or greater than 1, because they're often going against really good players from the enemy team that are trying to flank around and get some penetration on point. With this, you need to remember the possibility where you can dedicate a few defense guys to rocking a tank on point. And what does having a tank on the defense cancel out? It cancels out them getting shot in the head or having really crappy fragging ability. This way, Legion 201 here was losing the point, but they brought up a medium tank. And the medium tank is able to splash the point, right, with HE,
Once again, the Axis tanks are mainly playing defensively right now, so these infantry guys don't have any armor support.
And help out the defensive industry or infantry win these key engagements on point. They also brought up a Stewie here, and the Stewie in the medium were able to roll around here and squash out the infantry, and the Stewie can move fast, and also to bring up the Greyhound. Don't forget about the Greyhound, because the Greyhound you don't need to shift gears or anything like that, and so you can zoom around the point and move through hedgerows and wipe OPs, all that kind of good stuff. It's a very key defensive thing that newer teams need to do, because their players are still learning how to frag properly, and when going against top tier teams, they're going to struggle a lot. But this way, the tanks sort of offset that a little bit. Obviously, you have to watch out for AT and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, tanks, light, medium, and recon vehicles are able to help out so much in the back line.
Tanks all by themselves.
Don't forget to use these vehicles on defense.
Using their tanks defensively, the free tanks is...
Okay, let's move on to tip number 4. All right, everybody. So tip number 4 is to use StratSketch. Okay, your team needs to become familiar with StratSketch. You can go to StratSketch.com and create an account, all that kind of good stuff. But they have all the maps for Hell Let Loose in here, which you can use to build your strategy up for the upcoming games. Let's take a look at a Helios strategy on SMDM versus the combination of IR and, this was just maybe a double map, but IR and then also 82 AD. Let's talk about this. Here we have the opener for dugouts. So on the right-hand side, you can go ahead and add different slides to your map layout, right? And you can call them whatever you want. You can make as many detailed as you want, all that kind of good stuff. But here in Helios, we have all these different ones for armor openers, infantry openers, and commander roles, all that kind of stuff. You can create all these different categories to assign responsibilities off of the opening. StratSketch has a whole bunch of different tools you can use. And here on the left-hand side, we have the pointers, so you can just move around the map. You can move things like this, and you have the squiggly lines like this, and we can increase the size of the line, and we can create an arrow line, and we can move like this, and we could say, hey, you need to attack here, you need to attack over there, and that sort of thing. Okay, and you can slowly build your StratSketch. Know that they have straight lines you can use. You can draw circles like this. You can say, hey, we need to attack over here, or we need to capture this right there, and you can change the colors up on top, really easy. And they have this nice eraser feature. You can just erase it like this. And I can go on and on through this, but and they also have these shapes here you can do for the different identifiers. Okay. The important thing is you want to experiment with StratSketch and how it could best fit you. And also during the presentation, you can use this little thing right here to call out different spots like this. So if you're presenting on StratSketch, you could just hold this down, and you could say, hey, we need to capture this, we need to attack here, we need to attack over there, and using your left click mouse button to go through that. But going to the main point of StratSketch, you can see here we have listed out the different groups and everything in the left hand side to talk about, hey, when people are looking at this StratSketch, what do they need to look for? And so they can identify their different divisions or tents, whatever you may call your groups, people you allocate throughout the map. And on the top part too, we have the text boxes right here, so you can use a text box to add a label up here to say who's spawning where and what are you spawning in with, and does commander need to spawn anything. You can add all those text descriptions on here in case you need to make special notes. As you see down below, we have the commander garrison being labeled to say, hey, the commander needs to build these garrisons, Logi needs to build these garrisons over here, Flex Recon needs to build this garrison up here, over here gardens, and over here the defense needs to build this garrison. All these different things you could put in the StratSketch to really lay out how your team wants to prepare for the upcoming match, because maybe you have some special strategy planned, and you could put down all these markers and assign people to it, and people can study this. And like I said before, you can create layouts for all the different openings here for all these different points. Armor can create their own thing and say, hey, we're going to attack here, we're going to move our medium tank over here, we're going to do this over there, that sort of thing. Though the StratSketch is such a powerful tool for really laying out your team's plans for the next game. And during the game, while your players have second to more than one monitor, you can have the game open on one monitor, and then on the other monitor they have the StratSketch open. And then the commander during the game says, hey, everybody turn your slide to the post-cap situation of dugout versus dugout to Hugos. And then your team opens that up and says, okay, hey, I need to put my OP here, I need to put my OP over there. All this goes around or goes on behind the scenes in these Hell Let Loose competitive matches for these teams to prepare. Now, some teams go all out even more than Helios does with these StratSketches. Some teams really go wild with them. But This is a very, very important tool that new teams need to utilize, and it doesn't need to be on just one person. You want to make sure you delegate the responsibilities out. Moving on to tip number 5, buddies. Here we go. So we'll go ahead and jump on over to a little bit of PowerPoint action right here. But here, this is a common PowerPoint slide that I like to put together, because what I see sometimes for newer teams when I'm casting them is they get pretty antsy about defense. A little bit of pressure comes on the point and a whole bunch of bodies spawn back. You have to be so careful with the amount of bodies you spawn back during the games, because if you spawn too much back, you're going to lose map control. And this, I'm not going to go through all the things, ins and outs of defense, when to call back. I'm not going to do that right now. But what I'm going to do is just give you a general overview of how I approach it. So this is a slide here that you can kind of present to your team as well in a way. But we have defensive callback types based on threat estimate. All right. Here we have defense on defense. Number 1, that's our first level. So you're going to have your defense guys on defense. Number 2, those that are dead spawn on defense. They have quicker deployment. And you can create some type of code word in your team for this sort of thing. But when you think about it, those guys that guys or gals or that are on defense, or they're on the redeploy screen, they're already there. And that way, all they have to do is click on the squad to go to for the defense, and then they're there, right? There's no one that has to redeploy, wait 20 seconds, and then select the OP and go. Those are on the dead. You can call out dead spawns, head to defense OPs. Number 3, we have all infantry redeploy, non-SLs. And this way, we have SLs staying on the front line. All the infantry head back to support. And then if it's super serious, we call full redeployment, full reset, whatever you want to call it. And everyone heads back to the point and helps defend it. Okay. And this is the thing that I think about when determining the types of pressure. Number 1, you want to have somebody in the hard cap mostly at all times. Some teams get a little bit more aggressive with this and not have anybody in defensive sector. Everybody has their own appetite for risk, or their own risk appetite. It's team by team. You just kind of have to judge it within your team how comfortable you are having nobody in sector, because somebody always slips through. Anyways, you have to understand your Gary situation. So in this case, I have an example here where in this situation, we have one garrison up here, one over here. I think this is actually, I forgot who this is against, but anyways, we have this Gary here and then a garrison up here. Okay, but we have pressure on point along with the Gary out on point as well. In this situation, not too worried, although our front door is very weak right here, so we have to shore that up afterwards. After this, we deal with this pressure on point. But you want to look at the map and say, okay, hey, do we have a amount of garrisons on point or around the point to respond to this in due course? Or do we have no spawn points or only one spawn point maybe, and we need to flood everybody back to see how serious this is? If you have at least 1 or 2 bodies near the point, they can check the chevrons and sort of gauge how serious the pressure is. If you don't have anybody in the sector, then it's like, oh, you're playing a game. You're playing with fire, I feel like, because then you're just sort of guessing how serious the pressure is. But you want to look at the map, understand where are spawn points, and you can set dead spawns back to help just, hey, check everything out and see how everything is, right? If you're still losing the point, then you have to start thinking about number 3 around probably you're losing the point by 40%. And then if it's 50% lost, even keeps getting worse, then you want to start thinking about a full redeployment to reset the point. But the point is you want to collapse back into the point and not push out from the strong point. You want to push from all sides inside or towards the hard cap. That way you are attacking from all angles. You can find their OPs, their garrisons, whatever it may be. But it goes along with the point that I brought up in the other tips video when it comes to understanding where is the enemy most likely spawning from. And it comes to your Gary and radar network. And with these Garys here, you could say, hey, maybe they have something up here. Maybe they have a bunch of OPs over here, or they got something up over here, a garrison. And it's all about very map situational. But you want to look at the map, understand where could their spawn points be, and make sure you have enough spawn points to come in from all different angles. If you don't have any spawn points, you got to figure out some way to get everybody back to the point as possible to really help salvage the situation. Last thing I'll bring up on this real quick is you see on the top right, we have keep calm and keep comms concise. What you don't want is people in command chat saying, hey, we're losing the point. Because what does that cause in command chat? It causes fear. Everyone goes, oh my God, we're losing the point. Some people won't play with their HUD on. They check their HUD and they go, oh my God, we're losing the point. you have to change the language that you use. In this case, if we're losing the point like this, we can say, hey, we have some pressure on point. Let's go see what that is. That is some pressure. If it goes back to here, then it's like, okay, hey, what's going on back there, guys? Do we need to send dead spawns back? You have a little more serious conversation. If it gets to here, then you're thinking, okay, hey, let's fill this OP, let's fill that OP, let's sort this out. If it gets beyond that and you're going to here, you really have to start thinking about a full reset, because it's going to take everybody, at least for the redeploys, 20 seconds to redeploy, which is going to get to about maybe here or here. And then they have to go on the garrison, or they have to go on the outpost. And then that's maybe down to here or even here. And then it gets really, really dicey to get everybody in sector and that sort of thing. What you don't want to do is drop a reinforce preemptively when it's only at this. I see way too many commanders do this. They drop a reinforce as soon as a little pressure comes on the point, and then it's next to worthless because there's nobody there. You really have to be around maybe here, around this marker here, to really want to drop a reinforce. Don't get too antsy about using a reinforce. Save it until you have more pressure on point, or you have more bodies in sector to help really utilize the reinforce. But don't drop it too early. Wait, just wait. Let's be conservative with our reinforce and not drop it right away at the first sign of pressure. And that way we're not having a panic attack. You got to hold on to that puppy and just observe the situation, how serious it is, and then use it when you feel, if it's even more serious than that. All right, I think I've rambled on enough for this one. But those are my 5 tips for this video, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, go and drop a comment below. More than happy to get back to you. And we'll keep this series rolling. All right, have a good one, buddy.